Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started here. This is Schoology Assignments 101. We're going to talk about what you need to do to set up assignments, have students submit assignments, and also grade assignments within Schoology. So first, just to the attendance information, if you don't have this already, attendance will be dropped in the chat if you haven't seen it already. But you're going to make sure that you choose this webinar, which is Schoology Assignments. And then from there, you make sure you choose the presenters with my name, Fred Smith, and Kimberly Van Horn. Today's date, which is April 9th, 2020, and our start time of 1 p.m. Thank you guys all for attending. My name is Fred Smith. I'm a avid and mathematics teacher at Modesto High School. I've been teaching for the past 6 years, but I've been working in the district overall for the past 12 years. I've put my email down below for you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Shoot me an email, or you can search me out in Teams, and I'm more than happy to get back to you and help you with an issue. Trying to be active, making sure answering questions there, but also on the Schoology page itself. And then with me, I have Kim.
And my name is Kim Van Horn. I've been at Bret Harte for the last 6 years teaching computer science, and I've been in the district before that too. So if you have any elementary questions, I can try to help you out with those.
Yeah, so if you have any questions at any time, go ahead and throw those in the chat. Either one of us or both of us will gladly answer them for you. So let's take a look at today's agenda. So we're going to look at how you create a traditional assignment within Schoology, and then we'll talk about what it means to be traditional here in shortly. We're going to go over how students will submit, what it looks like, and then how you're going to go about reviewing or grading your assignments and all the key little features that come along with both creating and reviewing assignments. And then again, if you have a question, feel free to throw it in that chat. Kim might respond by text, we might respond vocally, but at any point you have a question, throw it in there, so don't feel like you have to wait until the very end. Okay, so the first part is assignments in Schoology. Basically, you're going to want to create an assignment in Schoology anytime you need to collect something from the students. So if the students are preparing, say, an outline for a paper and you want to review that, if students are creating an actual PowerPoint presentation themselves, you could do that. Or if maybe this is a video of them performing, whether it be a play or an instrument. If you need some sort of submission of work from the students, a Schoology assignment is the way to go. Now, these can be graded or ungraded. There's options for you to set it up so that way, since we're in this time where we're not quite really grading, we can make sure that it's set up that way so it doesn't actually appear the students are being graded. Also, you can make your assignments interactive. Like I was saying, you could have students record a reading or a presentation, or even an audio recording of them practicing their instruments. We'll go over different ways that you can provide feedback throughout the review process. So, how you create a Schoology assignment? Well, what you first got to do is, of course, get into Schoology. And once you're in Schoology, one of the easiest ways is to go into a course. And you're going to choose the first option there that says Add Materials in the red box. That'll give you the drop-down menu that you see in the very front, in the middle. And from there, you're going to choose Add Assignment. And that is going to open up your window box so that way you can see your options for creating an assignment. Now, you can also do this from within anywhere on the feed page. So if you're in the feed page on your course and you want to throw in an assignment or a quick little actual anything that you see from the drop-down menu, you can actually hover between the different items in your feed. That little dashed green line will pop up between the assignments. And if you click on the little plus there, it'll drop down the menu from where you're currently located within Schoology on that course. So it's a nice little quick way to open it up real fast. Now, when you choose the assignment button there, this is the pop-up window that you're going to see across your screen. And this is how you're going to fill out all the key important information that you want to share with the students, but also program into Schoology about the assignment. So the first thing, at the very top, you'll see that the first thing you're going to do is write the name, but also next to the name, there's this little asterisk. Anything that has the asterisk is going to require you to fill in that session in order to create the assignment. So you'll see there's not very many, but there are a couple of them that you want to make sure that are filled in. So the first one is the name. You get to pick the name. You can name it whatever you want. The name is also going to be the link that students are looking for. So whatever you name the assignment, that's going to be your link that you see in the news feed for students to access it. Number 2, that's your description box and description box tools. This is where you can enter in information that's relevant to your assignment, whether it be directions, step-by-step guide for the students, as well as also other links and interactive components. Number 2 itself is actually, sorry, words. And number 2 are your tools for when you go to type. So if you need to create a list, or you need to indent or unindent, strike through, or other little features there, you can click on those options and make your text more dynamic. The other thing to point out here, if you click where the 2 buttons are, that's where you're going to switch between the enriched text editor that you see, but also you can switch to HTML view. In the HTML view, I know a lot of people have been trying to link in and embed YouTube videos. Switching over to the HTML is how you're going to do that. And if we would like, we can, at the end of the session, show how we can embed a video via that option there. At the bottom of the description box, there's number 3. And these are some tools that you can also use to help make your assignments more interactive and dynamic. The first one is your file box. So if you choose that, it'll allow you to upload a document to the description for students to access, whether it be that they need to access it because it's like a worksheet, or it can be a guide or an example. But whatever you have from your documents, whether it be a picture, a Word doc, or anything like that, you can tag it by using that first option. The second one is a link. So if you want to post a very specific link to your assignment, you can do so there instead of within the actual description, and it will link it down at the very bottom of everything. The third one, this is your resources option. This will be a way that you can take your resources that are linked within Schoology and access them here. So if you have, say, a small assessment that you want to throw at the very end of the assignment for students to go through and assess ultimately how well they did on something, you can create that assessment in your resources, and then this is how you would connect it to this assignment. So you would choose that and find it in your resources. The fourth option is a microphone. This is for audio and video recording. So if you have, say, a recording of you because maybe you're a PE teacher and you're trying to get the students to learn a specific style of dance, so you have an example of that you recorded and uploaded, you can tag that here, or you could have certain pronunciations. The sky is the limit when it comes to these options here, and I would definitely encourage test them out and see what works for you. The fifth option, that is the external tool button. That is for anything that's not currently linked within Schoology as far as an app, a way to connect it. If you're not finding what you need within Schoology, I would strongly recommend reaching out to Matthew Ketchum before you just try to figure out what you need to do to link. He might have some way that you could do it before going to that external tool, and then he can also help you with the external tool with his experience. Number 4, we're going to put our due dates and times. So if you look at the first box, it's a calendar. So it'll open up the calendar. This is how you can set deadlines for your assignments to kind of keep students on track. These can be soft deadlines or hard deadlines, and we'll talk about that afterwards. And then you get to set the time that the students turn it in. So if you want to, say, keep the students on track while we're on this closure, and you have several things that they need to work through, it'd be a fantastic idea to kind of stagger those assignments so students know, okay, I need to complete these by this day, so I know that I can then do these by the next date. Number 5, that is your points for the assignment. You can change that to 0, so feel free to just get rid of the default that's there and enter in 0 for this time period. Number 6, this is one of our required fields. This is the category in which you're grading the assignment. This usually corresponds to our Power School. If you go to grade from Schoology to Power School. For this session, we're going to make sure that we choose the ungraded option to avoid any sort of conflicting of looking like it's being graded. And then down below, we have the period and factor and scale. The period, this is set within Schoology, within the course itself. So it's preset for you. You do not have to change that. That would just be if you were creating an assignment for a different time period, but go ahead and leave that to what it's set as. The factor, that's just the scale factor that you want the assignment for grading purposes. You can adjust the scaling if this was an actual assignment being graded. But again, for this purpose, we're not really focusing on the factor. And then the scale and rubric, this is where you can change your scaling rubric for grading. Modesto City Schools has several options preset, including one that's standards-based. But there are different options within there, and I would suggest taking a look and seeing what fits with your guys' grading standards because we're all kind of at different levels. And then number 8, which will be the options down below, and we'll also link in that Learning Objectives Align button. We'll talk about that on the next slide, so we'll come back to those. And then number 9 is the Create button. You want to make sure that you're able to click that before trying to change to a different page. It's very vital if you want to make sure that everything saves. We can talk about some options down below with number 8 that will help you if, say, you're not done, but you don't want to have to restart over completely. Use that Create button. It'll post it to the page, but we have some options to also help you if, say, you're incomplete, you need to find something else to add to it, or you want to make changes to it still, and it's not quite done. That way you're not having to recreate everything over again from what you started with. And now there was one last thing before this on this page that I haven't mentioned. If you are interested, I know next week there's going to be some more webinars also available, more focusing on some tools and aspects of things. If you look below the description box, there are assigned from app options. You have 3 options: the Google Drive assignments, the Microsoft OneDrive assignments, and Kami. I would strongly recommend checking those out, especially our Google Drive options and Kami. Mike Rich is currently trying to work out a schedule for some more webinars next week to kind of help prolong and build out our extra tools and time that we have. So if interested, look at the PD calendar for next week. I would probably say this weekend to see what Mike has scheduled based on Google assignments and Kami assignments. We won't really be talking about those here. We're just talking about using the traditional tools that Schoology has set up that we just discussed now. So we skipped over number 8. So let's talk about the options that you have at the bottom of the page for your assignments. The very first one, down at the very bottom there, are these 3 colored dots here. And these are how you can take your assignment and assign it to either individual students or groups of students. So let's say you have a set of students that are on an IEP that need some modifications done. This is how you can take your assignment, do the modifications, and only assign it to those students, and then have another assignment with no modifications for everybody else. Let's say you have students with higher rigor in the class that you can push them, do a little bit extra. Same thing here. You can modify the assignment to meet their needs, and then assign it only to them. We have a comment. A friend of mine clicked on that and it did not open any student names. Not sure why. Mine is working fine. I would have your friend double check their account. If it's a teacher, they should make sure they're in the right one. They might be in some sort of weird class that doesn't have it set up, but it's always something that if they need help and figure things out, reach out for help. Message one of us, one of our presenters, or our tech office. Now there was the Align Learning Objectives button. It was just above the bottom options. If you click that button that says Align with the little blue target on it, that will allow you to search through the Common Core standards, so that way you can tag standards to go along with your assignment. So that way, our elementary people, I know you guys do standard-based grading. This is a fantastic way for you to still have that excellent way of connecting what you're working on and focusing on for the standards to the assignment. So that way you can still assess if the students are meeting what you wanted. Let's see, we had a comment here. When I clicked on the 3 dots, it opened a text box window to type in student names into there, and then they popped up. So there we go, fantastic response there. So make sure, Dan, if your teacher friend was having some issues, see if they got that box to pop up to search out students or groups. There is a way you can create groups of students. So if you have, say, several students on an IEP, you can put them in the same group together if they kind of have the same needs. So that way you can create one assignment for those 3 or 4 or a small group of students. So after the learning objectives, there's the lock feature. So you have this little padlock here. This is a way that you can take an assignment and lock it from the students so that way they are no longer able to submit. If you click on this, there's 2 options to lock. There's a lock now button and there's a lock when button. So it'll allow you to set a future date and time that the assignment will lock on. And if you say set an assignment for 3 p.m. to lock on, the students have up until 3 p.m. to turn it in. As soon as the clock hits 3 or hits the time that you set, it will not allow the students to submit at that exact time. But this is a great way for students to make sure they're meeting hard deadlines, especially later on outside of this closure time. The next option is this little box here with a green arrow pointing down. This is your submissions enable or disable button. Be careful with this option. You will be able to post assignments and accidentally click this button off, so students would not be able to submit anything for your assignment until you clicked it back on. So you want to make sure that you see the little color within that box in order for it to be enabled. I actually had to help a teacher earlier this week because they mixed up 2 of the options and they clicked this one off instead of the other one. So none of the students, when she was testing it out, could ultimately submit what she wanted. Because we also have this option. And this option with the little green circle there, that is how we make the assignment visible to students. So if you see a green dot, when you go to publish and create the assignment, the students will be able to see that in the feed. If you leave it as a gray dot or click it off and turn it gray, the students will not be able to see that. It'll only show up in your feed and you will only be able to access it until you publish to students. This is a great way that you can make sure that everything looks good beforehand and students don't see it. So if you want to test things out a little bit, turn off the green circle. Don't turn off the box. Next to that, this is the pie chart for the grade statistics. This is a way for you to, based off of an assignment being graded, get the important details about that assignment. You can also do this with assessments and see your average. You can get a nice little box and whisker plot for what's going on with your grades and how the students are doing. It's a nice way to do this within like a PLC. So that way you have common statistics off of a common assessment. So you can all look and see how things laid out for the classes and any sort of remedies or reteaching that needs to take place. Next is this little chat box. This will allow you to either enable or disable comments. So if you see the blue little chat box there, that will allow the students to comment directly on the actual post of your assignment. So if you look at an assignment that you've created in Schoology, there's an actual comment button that allows students to comment directly in that feed. This does not disable student comments from occurring with their assignment post, and we'll show that when we get to the student section. This only talks about the students posting directly within the feed on an assignment, almost like a Facebook post does. And then lastly, this is my favorite tool. This is the copy to another course option. So you don't have to go into each individual course and create an assignment. You can create it once and share it over. It'll open a box and ask you what classes or what courses you want to share it with. You'll choose which ones, and then it has some minor grading options that you can change based off of what that course has set for its settings in the grading department. But these are your options to use at the bottom of your Create Assignment box. Now, again, we want to make sure that during this time we can make some things interactive for students. So different ways you can set up checklists for students to go through and make sure they did all of the steps that need to be done. You can link out to different things. So like our example here that you see with the Impressionism assignment, there's a link to the Metropolitan Museum of Art website that the students will be able to take a tour of the actual museum. So there's lots of ways that we can make our assignments here interactive for the students that way. It's a little bit more interactive than, say, staring at the computer screen with some text. There are also ways, I will say, to embed videos or slide decks or maps using Google Maps and everything else. So check out and see what your colleagues are doing, see what you want to do with your classes. Now, you've created the assignment. How are the students going to submit their work? So they're going to go into the course, just like always. They're going to locate the assignment that you want them to submit for. So let's say they're submitting this writing assessment for their literary analysis essay. What they're going to do is they're going to work on whatever they need to from the directions you laid out for them. Once they're all done, they have several options that they're going to do to submit. So what they're going to do first, locate the assignment. Once they're in the assignment page, because it'll take them to the directions by itself, remove everything else, they'll see this Submit Assignment button. They'll click that, and they'll get this pop-up window that gives them some options to choose from. So once they choose their options to submit, they're going to make sure they hit that Submit button like you make sure you hit the Create button when you're first creating the assignment. The first option is Upload. So on the default pop-up window, this is the first option for students. This is if they need to upload any sort of file or document for you in order to be able to grade it. So there's two things that they can do. When they upload the document, if it's a file, they're going to choose the first option, which is the little collection of paper there. And this could be an Excel spreadsheet that they are manipulating and using data for. This could be an image that maybe they had to work through a different program on their computer. Or maybe it's just a simple PDF that they worked on and can upload. The other option, which is number 3, and this is the audio and video recording option. This is where students can be more interactive, and actually you can use your tools to have them work through different assignments, whether it be something like public speaking, so where they're recording, say, a speech or a presentation. You can have them practice an instrument and have it recorded. This is also where you can practice forms of speaking just in general, especially at our lower levels when you're having them learn how to pronunciate certain words. Or if it's a foreign language, you could have them practice the verbs. Once they upload the document and it says it's done and fully uploaded, then you want to make sure that they choose the Submit button to finalize and actually submit the assignment. Next option is the Create option. So if they need to create something, and this is usually a written response, they're going to choose the Create, and then they're going to type their response into the box and then be able to submit there. So they would choose Create, which is number 1, fill in the word box with their response and their answer. And then they have 2 options. Let's say the students worked on this at the very start, they've got extra time to still finish, and they want to save their draft. The students have that option. They want to be able to make sure that they choose number 3, which is in the very middle blue button there. That'll save a draft. It looks very similar to when they submit. So if you look at the box just to the right there, that's what it's going to look like when the students save a submission as a draft. So it looks like they submitted the assignment, but it says draft, and they're able to edit that draft. When they submit, it'll say submission, and it won't say anything else afterwards, and they won't have that edit button. If they have finished, they went back into that draft, or they did it through the first pass. And again, you want to make sure they hit the submit button to actually turn in the assignment. And then the third option is using the resources tab. This is where if students have a file saved to their Google Drive or their OneDrive, they're able to access it here and not have to download it off of it beforehand. They simply click the resources tab. They're going to choose the apps option. And then from the apps option, they're going to choose whatever drive file they have it on. So if they have it, say like they have here the Microsoft OneDrive, they authorize and sign into their OneDrive account, and it will actually open up their OneDrive within that window for them to find the file, document, image, or whatever they're trying to turn in for you here. So they'll choose the file, and then they're able to submit it just like the other two options have. And they choose that create button and submit. So those are the three options for students. So we've gone through you creating the assignment. We've gone now students with their options and how they can upload things and turn them into you. Let's now jump to the last part of this, which is the reviewing or grading assignments. So students have submitted. There's two ways that you can go through and find where they grade the assignments. When you first sign into Schoology and a student has submitted any sort of work, reminder, you're going to get this little reminder at the top of the page there, at the upper kind of rightish corner of your feed. And this is where you can click and see what assignments have been turned in by any student within any of your classes that you may have. So if, like myself, I have Avid and Math, it'll list any of my assignments that I have ungraded for all of my classes. When I click on the ungraded assignments submissions, like you see with the yellow box for number 1, it'll open up to box number 2, where it's going to list out the different assignments that students have turned in. So let's say I have 5 assignments out for all my classes. If I have one student in each one of those classes submit in those 5, if I have 5 students submit on the different 5 assignments, it'll show me each one of those titles. And then I can click on the one that I specifically want to look at that moment. So like on number 2 there, we'd click the writing assessment, literary analysis essay, and it will take me actually to the grading page for that submission. So you'll see for number 3 there, it takes me to that submission. It tells me who submitted it and that it needs grading. So once I click to grade something, the students have submitted some sort of document, and the document viewer is the key component for me to be able to grade and see what they did. So this is what the document viewer is going to look like. It's not the entire page, but it's most of the page. So we're going to first talk about this document viewer, and then we'll talk about the key components that are around it. That way you have this interaction for the whole page. So first, with the document viewer, you have your top bar of options. We're going to break it down into A, B, and C here. But then you can also see there's the document itself, where you can access and see exactly what the students have submitted. And then there's this other option that you see off to the side, which just looks like comments or little sticky notes. And we'll talk about that when we talk about options for B. So your options for A, the first one are the 4 little tiles. Those 4 tiles will make a thumbnail view of all the pages that the students have submitted. So this student has submitted 4 pages. If we click that, it'll show me 4 little pictures, like thumbnails, of the actual pages themselves. So let's say I'm looking for something very specific that the students are having to comment on, and that's kind of my focus. I can click the 4 tiles there. It will open up the view, and I can quickly look at the small tiles and see where that piece is. Then next to it is how I scroll through the pages. So I can use the left or right buttons there to switch between the different pages the students submit. You could also just instantly type in the number where you see number 1 located. Next to that is your zoom options. So you can do the plus or minus to zoom in or out of the page. You could also enter in a specific number. I don't know the maximum amount of zoom that you can get, so feel free to play with that. And then next to it, there's other zoom options here for you. The first one, which is highlighted in that kind of bluish green, is the fit to screen width. That will expand the page for the document viewer to be the width of your screen. The next one with the arrows up and down, that'll fit the height of your document viewer to the screen. And then the 4 arrows going to the corners, that'll be a full page option.
And then we had a question. Is there a way to review parts of the webinar as we go along?
What do you mean by review parts of the webinar? That's kind of a little vague for me. Well, we're recording the session, and I'll be sharing the video with Mike to post on the instructional webpage for YouTube that has a bunch of videos recorded for you for all different webinars. I'm also going to be sending out the PowerPoint after the session to all the attendees. So that way you guys have the PowerPoint, and then the link for the video will be, well, you can link to the video via the YouTube page, which Kim just posted actually. Perfect. Okay, so those are your zoom options. At the far end of the A tab section, those are your cursor options. The first one with the hand, that's your pan option for the cursor, and that allows you to simply click and grab the page and be able to scroll by grabbing the page. The second one is your cursor. This allows you to select text and everything else while having to use the normal scroll bar or scroll wheel. So those are your options for A, kind of more along the lines of viewing the document itself. Option B, these kind of are more of our miscellaneous kind of ones, our default tools. The first one, the little printer that will print the document the student has submitted. I will warn you, be careful and make sure you use your print preview to make sure that Schoology doesn't kind of change your settings and all of a sudden instead of 4 pages printing, you have 16 because it decides to zoom in or do something funny. So make sure you check before you print. The arrow down to the rectangle, that is how you can download the page the student submitted or pages the student submitted. Maybe you want to take this offline, save it as an example. That would be the one way you could do that. There's a search bar, so if you're looking for keywords, you could put in the keyword or words, and it'll search the document for those. And then lastly, this is an important one. This is your comments and revision notes. For that last section where you see Jer Allen has those little sticky notes, that's a way that Schoology keeps track of revisions and comments within the Schoology system. So if a student uses Schoology to edit, they can simply tag things like a comment, like you see the little yellow sticky note that's on the page itself. That would be a comment, or any sort of editing that occurs. You'll notice there's a sticky note that corresponds to where those edits occur. So like our highlighting and comment, or that yellow one, Jer Allen's first little sticky notes there. The strike through has the second one, and then the underlining that happens in the bottom matches up with the third sticky note. So those revisions are tracked and shown, and those are also ways that you could leave comments yourself. So if you choose the commenting option, your comments will show up over there as well. So now let's take a look kind of holistically at everything else. C options we'll talk about in just a moment. But when we go through, let's look at the whole page first before we get into our C options.
And then there was a question about notifications. She said, if there's 2 admins, a teacher and a para, are there notifications unique to each?
I'm not familiar with having both. I've never had a para be an admin in my class, just because I don't want to take the risk of something changing or anything like that accidentally.
I know that I'm an admin on several teachers' Schoology pages, and I'm getting all of the notifications that they are about students turning in work. So maybe they are all kind of the same.
Yeah, I wonder if it's, well, I'm sure once the assignment gets graded, it'll disappear from the reminder section. So hopefully the para or anybody else isn't actually going in to grade. Hopefully they're going in more to look and see the actual page. But the reminders should pop up for both. I don't know if it's unique to both though. So like if you went to click in view, it would be kind of kept for them the same. And then there was another question, how do students know I left a comment? They also receive notifications as well. So when you grade something, they get a notification. When you comment, they get notification. So lots of easy ways to communicate. Plus, students know about this little commenting feature. I'm not for our higher level students, so they'll see the different comments on posts, as well as also there's another thing we'll talk about just on the next page for leaving comments, and they see that as well. So, like I said, moving to a more whole page kind of view, this is what it's actually going to look like when you look at a document that a student submits. Students will not see everything quite when you're grading things, but they see with certain things locked, but you have more of the options here. So first, I'm going to talk about this top section, and then we'll talk about the red dash section. The top starts with the student's name. So whenever a student submits, their name is the big feature right at the very top. That is also a drop-down menu. So that way you can quickly click between students and see, okay, John was working with Tommy, so I'm going to move over to Tommy's page and I can see. Or this is, I want to compare these two students and see how they both handled and made sense of my assignment. It's a quick, easy way to jump between the students. Below it, this is your revision options. Students are able to submit multiple versions. Like you see with John here, John submitted 2 versions of his assignment. He had revision 1 and revision 2. That's options you can set up for the students. It's a good way for them to say, practice, turn it in, get feedback, and then readjust and kind of keep that cycle going. You can see their previous revisions as well. So if you click where it says revision 2 and that drop-down menu pops up, you can go back to revision 1 and see what changes occurred between the 2 steps there. Next is the document actual name. So if they've submitted multiple pages, if you click between that, that's another way you can change between the different pages. This is also a great way because students sometimes, they like to share work sometimes, if we'd like to put it nicely. Sometimes the student name will pop up in there. It's a quick way to see, did the student actually name it themselves or was this somebody else's work? And then right below that, that is the day, date, and time of submission, as well as also a notification on whether the student submitted it on time per your deadline or if it was late, if you accepted late submissions and had a soft deadline. Remember, you have the option with that lock button when you create the assignment in the options to either leave it as a soft one where you don't lock it, or if you want to make it a hard deadline, you set up the lock at a specific time. But it's a quick way to see, oh, okay, this person did submit. Did they wait to the very last minute to submit? Did they get through this and submit this early? And then up top, you have your grade option. There's a box there for you to enter in your score. And then the X that's located there, that is how you're going to close out the assignment when you're all done grading. And it will take your score that you put in there and transfer it to the grade book. Now, the other piece, and this is where the student feedback part kicks in, is the submission activity. So when a student submits, they will see their little post where it has their name, their icon, and then it will say revision 1 submitted. It'll say what day and time. And then if they resubmit, it'll keep making those posts like you see with revision 2. If they do 5 revisions, you'll see 5 of those posts. But this is also a spot for you to leave comments and tag files or recordings. So if you have a student, maybe they struggle on the first revision and you want to give them some kind of extra guidance or help or a nice hint to push them to the right direction, you can post a little comment. You can also choose the file or the recording option, just like you have with your assignment post. So the first one is, let's say you want to tag something. So here, this teacher has posted a study plan template for the student to review. Maybe it's meant to help them really through the next step of the process. And then there's also a recording button with the microphone. So let's say you don't want to type everything out because it's a little bit easier to just to say, like sometimes we have, you can do that. Or if you want to record a video, you can do so. And that'll share with the student. They'll be notified of the comment and then go and review it. It's a fantastic way to give feedback to students, especially when we're not grading assignments here. You can then guide them and say, hey, this was great. Double check number 3. Number 3 had some errors. Go back, we'll rework it, and maybe look at, say, this formula. Or that was a great idea. Maybe you should pursue it further in your paragraph. And then you just hit post and the student gets notified that it's there. Now, we skipped over the C options. These are your annotating options. So if a student submits a document, you can annotate on the page directly. I already talked about the grading for number 1, but just to point it out again, when you enter in a score there, it'll save and it will actually transfer to Schoology's gradebook. You also have the ability to leave a comment on the score in that same box when you click on it. Then you have your options down below for 2 through 5. So number 2, this is your highlighting tool. So if you click on that, you're able to highlight text the student has on the page. Number 3 is your, oops, I forgot, I gotta click these. There we go. Number 2 is your highlight. Number 3 is your strikeout. This is how you can say maybe they added some information, but it's not quite relevant to what you're looking for. You can strike that out. Number 4 is your notes, and this will show up in that little revision feed as well. So students will click on the little note button there, and it will open up the sidebar for them to read your comments on what they have there. And then 5 is the draw feature. And this is where you can write directly on the pen. This is where you can utilize that Surface Pro pen and either draw them a diagram, write directly on top that they did great work, or pinpoint other little details that they may have by circling or doing what you need to. There are options for highlighting and the actual draw. By choosing your options, you can see in the box up on the right-hand side of the top part. You can change the color. So especially if you're highlighting, and the student has highlighting on the page as well, and then say they chose yellow to do their highlighting, you want to make sure your highlighting stands out. So you can also choose something else, like they chose that aqua color to highlight. But those are ways that you can review things and comment and give positive or constructive feedback to students. And with that, that's our presentation on Schoology assignments. If there's any questions, feel free to still throw those in the chat. I would strongly recommend signing up for the Schoology 102 assignments course. The code's provided for you on the screen here. That course will take you on a deeper dive where you'll actually create assignments. You'll look at discussion board posts. You'll look at how all of this interacts within your courses on a much deeper dive. Thanks, Dan. I've also provided my email again there for you. Feel free, if you have any questions, concerns, issues that pop up, go ahead and reach out. More than happy to try to figure things out remotely. If we need to set up a call, more than happy to set up a call time with you. That way we can share your screen. We can go through several different options on a more almost face-to-face level with the Teams app here. You guys are very welcome, and thank you guys. I threw the attendance link back in the chat. If there's any questions, feel free to throw them in there. Make sure fill that out so you get credit for this. And then if there's anything you guys want me to show you on Schoology, also feel free to throw that in the chat. Dan Brown says, when I create an assignment, I always put it in bold so it is easier for the students to read. Absolutely. It also helps us be able to read it right away too. I know last eye exam definitely got stronger glasses here. You guys are very welcome. Definitely go Giants. Hopefully we'll get started and get underway soonish when everything kind of calms and settles. we'll stay on the chat here. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them out. Or if you want to see something in Schoology, or if you've had an issue already, go ahead and throw it out. We can take a look now. Otherwise, thank you guys. Thank you for attending. Make sure you do the attendance. I'll throw it one more time in the chat here. Yes, you, Kim, do you still have the link saved?
Yep, I was going to throw it in right now. Give me a second.
Perfect. So Dan Brown, she's going to throw the link there for you. This is our instructional coaches. They've been recording other webinars that they've been doing and other trainings. All the webinars we've been trying to record and post and share. So I think Mike's been uploading them as soon as he gets them. So check them out. There's different ones up there. Like I said, I'm going to share the PowerPoint with you guys as soon as we're done. You're welcome, and thank you for attending.
Yeah, my teachers really like the YouTube videos because they're able to stop it and try it out and then come back and see how to troubleshoot things they might have missed.
Absolutely, yeah. I know these things kind of feel like sometimes they're flying, so it's always great to have that option to like pause, even just take a breath and then jump back in. Is this listed under staff applications? No, but if it's currently, if you go into the staff and I think it's staff and student resources. Here, I'll take you there. We'll take the tour there, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. Let me jump to Chrome under the 50 tabs I have open. Okay, so I'm going to go to the homepage for Mesa City Schools. So if you go down here, staff resources. I don't know why I was trying to combine stuff. Staff resources. Then you're going to click on the training link here for distance learning right at the top. And then if you scroll down past the Schoology options, webinar options, it's here under other available resources. So right here, the EdTech channel. And like I said, they have lots of options and tools with videos for you. So let's say you wanted to deep dive on Flipgrid, you could jump right into the webinar that we just had with Flipgrid. Or let's say you've heard a lot about conferences with Schoology, you could check that out here. Is it okay to pull videos from YouTube if we find on our own? Absolutely. I would just recommend give them a watch first on your own, just to be thorough, because I know sometimes you never quite know what's tagged on a video. But yeah, absolutely. I always have some math ones that I save and that I will use to tag on to extra assignments. So like when I go through a lesson, I'll post a link or I'll embed the video in my OneNote class notebook for students to use. Absolutely. Definitely utilize anything you can.
I try to turn off the comments too, because sometimes on those videos, there's like inappropriate comments at the bottom for some reason, even instructional ones.
Yeah, you just never know with what's going on in the wild west of YouTube. You're very welcome. Definitely welcome. And then if anybody else still has any questions here, feel free to toss them out. Anything they want to review, we can. I'm going to go back to MCS for Kids.